Mercedes has spent generations building cars that symbolized power, class, and engineering pride. But not every legend carried a clean reputation. From the wind-cut discipline of the W126 S-Class to the sealed, overbuilt confidence of the W140, Mercedes kept redefining what authority on four wheels could look and feel like. Then came the 500e, a discreet sedan with the heart of something far less civilized, while the 190e 2.3 16 and 2.5 16 proved that a smaller Mercedes could carry real motorsport intent without surrendering its composure. The R129 SL pushed the grand touring idea into a new era, blending safety, electronics, and elegance with unusual seriousness. And when the C36 AMG arrived, it quietly announced that Mercedes' performance was entering a different chapter altogether. Each of these cars changed the company in a distinct way. Each left behind decisions, tensions, and details still worth opening carefully. By the end, you will not just know these Mercedes better, you will feel why they mattered, why they still unsettle expectations, and why their stories stay with you long after the engine falls silent. And at number 1, I would place the Mercedes-Benz W126 S-Class. Mercedes once sold prestige through mass, silence, and unquestioned authority. Then the oil crisis made old luxury thinking look vulnerable. The W160 suddenly seemed heavy, blunt, and expensive to move. So Mercedes redesigned the S-Class around air, weight, and efficiency. If you look closer, the body itself became engineering language. Bruno Sacco's lines cut drag, hid wipers, and calmed noise. High-strength steel and lighter alloy V8s reduced consumption noticeably too. Mercedes claimed roughly 10% less fuel than before overall. That mattered because efficiency had become a prestige question now. If you consider this, aerodynamics became luxury without any announcement. Buyers felt stability, quieter speeds, and effortless long-distance composure immediately. Soon the W126 became the best-selling S-Class ever produced worldwide. Not because it shouted, but because everything simply worked together. And that is where Mercedes quietly changed the modern flagship. Luxury once meant leather, silence, and the confidence of arriving. Mercedes changed that by making protection part of the appeal. If you look at the W126 closely, safety was not hidden. It was engineered into the car's identity. In 1981, Mercedes gave the S-Class the world's first production driver airbag, paired with a front passenger belt tensioner. That was not decoration. That was a statement. The body itself was shaped by years of safety research and optimized for offset crashes. Buyers felt they were purchasing more than comfort now. They were buying reassurance, foresight, and visible engineering seriousness. That shift mattered enormously. Rivals could still sell speed, chrome, or tradition. Mercedes was selling something harder to measure, yet impossible to ignore. It made safety feel prestigious. And once that happened, the luxury world quietly changed around it. The W126 did not invent Mercedes' V8 power. It redirected. Earlier S-Class engines delivered authority, yet fuel crises changed expectations. The older W116 was not weak, only suddenly less convincing. Mercedes answered with lighter M16 and M117 light alloy V8 blocks. That mattered because efficiency had already become a luxury concern. The 500 cell's 4,973 cc V8 made up to 265 horsepower. Its torque reached 405 Nm, giving effortless speed without strain. Then the 560 SEL raised displacement further to 5,547 cc altogether. In E-form, output climbed to a full 300 horsepower. If you consider this, Mercedes made thrift feel aristocratic again. You were not buying compromise, you were buying better judgment. The important part was balance, not headline performance numbers alone. That is why the W126 still feels intelligently engineered today. It changed Mercedes by proving efficiency could deepen prestige itself. Step inside, and the W126 explains Mercedes' power without theatrics. Earlier luxury cabins often impressed first, then exhausted you later. Mercedes chose calm surfaces, disciplined controls, and visible logic instead. The important part was ease, not ornament for ornament's sake. Power seat switches were shaped like seats, so your hand understood. Memory settings stored seat and steering positions before others copied. Automatic climate control read cabin temperature and adjusted intelligently constantly. Rear passengers could heat seats, move electrically, stretch, and work. Courtesy lamps illuminated the ground. Reading lamps preserved night composure. Even the instrument panel reported exterior temperature beneath the speedometer. If you look closely, authority here came from thoughtful control. The cabin never begged attention, yet it never felt ordinary. You felt composed, informed, and slightly elevated by everything inside. That restraint helped define Mercedes' leadership throughout the 1980s worldwide. By the late 1980s, the W126 had become unmistakable everywhere. You saw its long wheelbase versions serving official and executive life. Heads of state, royalty, celebrities, and industrialists embraced it openly. That popularity was earned because the car solved contradictions beautifully. It looked dignified, yet moved efficiently, safely, and without fuss. It felt expensive, yet rational enough for daily use everywhere. Production eventually reached 892,123 cars, still an S-Class record today. That made fame measurable, not merely nostalgic or journalistic myth-making. The important part was what Mercedes learned from success. Safety, efficiency, ergonomics, and quiet authority now belong together permanently. Later S-Classes chased different ideals, but followed this blueprint closely. If you consider this, the W126 became Mercedes' doctrine afterward. It revolutionized the brand by making excellence feel inevitable everywhere. And when people remember old Mercedes' seriousness, this is why. At number 2, I would place the mighty W140. The W140 arrived carrying Mercedes' ambition unrestrained. It was conceived when engineers still believed cost should follow. That belief shaped everything, from glass thickness to door weight. The world was changing, but Mercedes refused smaller thinking then. BMW offered speed, precision, and cleaner modern confidence nearby. Jaguar sold grace, tradition, and softness wrapped in wood. Mercedes answered with mass, silence, isolation, and over-engineering everywhere. This was not extravagance alone, it was philosophy made steel. The W140 became the last S-Class built without compromise whatsoever. If you look closer, even inconvenience became part meaning. Its size, weight, and seriousness announced confidence before motion began. You were meant to feel protection, permanence, and distance immediately. That is why this Mercedes still feels almost unreasonable today. The W140 made isolation feel like engineering, not decoration. BMW's 7 Series could feel sharper and more alert, while Jaguar's XJ offered warmth, grace, and old-world charm. Mercedes chose something heavier, quieter, and more absolute instead. The double-glazed windows reduced outside noise noticeably, while the soft closed doors added a sense of controlled weight every time you entered or left the cabin. The important part was not simply comfort, it was separation. If you sat inside a W140, the outside world seemed farther away than before. That made the car important, because Mercedes turned silence itself into a luxury feature. Rivals could still sell speed, prestige, and tradition. the W140 sold engineered calm. And once buyers felt that level of isolation, ordinary luxury suddenly seemed less complete. The W140's V12 was not built to impress on paper alone. It was Mercedes answering a challenge that BMW and Jaguar had already placed in front of the luxury world. BMW's E32 750 IL had arrived first with a modern V12 and clear technical confidence, while Jaguar already carried V12 history and aristocratic presence. Mercedes answered with the M120, a 6.0-litre four-valve V12 that delivered smoothness, force, and quiet authority in a new way. The important part was not just the number, it was the message. Mercedes was proving it could still build the ultimate flagship engine without losing refinement or control. If you look closer, that engine gave the W140 a new kind of legitimacy. It did not simply keep pace with rivals. It restored Mercedes to the top end of the conversation with unmistakable force. The W140 revealed its character through the details you touched every day, and that was exactly the point. Nothing about this car felt casual, simplified, or lightly considered. The famous parking rods rising from the rear fenders were not a gimmick. They were Mercedes admitting the car's immense scale, then solving that problem with a precise, almost theatrical piece of engineering. The heavy doors told the same story. They were thick, dense, and reassuring in the hand, and the soft close function finished each movement with quiet authority. That small moment explained the whole philosophy of the W140. Ordinary actions were meant to feel protected, deliberate, and complete. If you look closely, the excess begins to make disciplined sense. Hardware became confidence. Mass became reassurance. Complexity became calm. And that is why the W140 felt special before the engine even turned. The W140 impressed the world because it felt finished in a way few cars ever have. Its silence, size, precision, and authority were impossible to miss. Mercedes built this flagship as though compromise itself were unacceptable, and you could feel that ambition in the glass, the doors, the seats, and the structure. Everything about it suggested seriousness. Everything about it suggested permanence. But that same thoroughness also created the argument around the car. To some people, it was magnificent. To others, it felt excessive, almost stubborn in its refusal to be smaller, lighter, or easier. Its scale was immense. Its presence could feel intimidating. Even people who admired it understood that the W140 asked something from you in return. It demanded respect, patience, and space. That is why its reputation never became simple, and why its legend still feels alive today. At number 3, the 500e enters like a private agreement between giants. Mercedes wanted a serious high-performance W124, but the body, packaging, and production demands had moved beyond ordinary factory logic. So Porsche was brought in, quietly, to develop and assemble one of the strangest collaborations in German car history. Mercedes supplied the vision, the shell, and the authority. Porsche solved the physical problems, built the widened body, handled final assembly, and turned the concept into something real. The cars even traveled back and forth between Sindelfingen and Zuffenhausen during production, a process that took about 18 days per car. That mattered because the 500e was never a simple engine transplant. It was a hand-finished industrial negotiation. If you look closer, the partnership itself gave the car its first mystique. Before the V8 started, the engineering story already felt extraordinary. Then came the heart of it, a 5-litre V8 hidden inside executive discipline. The 500e used the 4,970cc 4-valve M119 V8 from the 500 SL, producing 240 kW or 326 PS with 480 Nm of torque. Those numbers mattered, but the delivery mattered more. With a 4-speed automatic and an electronically limited 250 km/h top speed, the car could reach 100 km/h in about 6.1 seconds, yet it never looked impatient. That was the point. You were getting force without theatre, speed without flamboyance, and authority without noise. If you opened the hood, you saw dense packaging and serious intent. If you drove it, the power arrived as clean, effortless thrust. The important part was contrast. This looked like a disciplined W140 saloon, but moved like something far more dangerous. That engine gave the 500e its shock and its lasting credibility. The body told the truth only if you knew where to look. The 500e was 56 millimeters wider and 23 millimeters lower than the standard W124, with swollen arches, revised bumpers, wider track, and much stronger brakes fitted to match the performance. None of that was decorative. Porsche and Mercedes widened the shell because the V8, suspension and braking package demanded more room and more control. That is why the car feels so special visually. It remains composed, almost reserved, yet its stance gives the game away. The arches sit with quiet menace. The wheels fill them properly. The braking hardware suggests intent before motion begins. The important part was balance between understatement and threat. This was not a loud super saloon. It was a disciplined weapon in business clothing, and that body-chassis combination is what made the 500e feel so complete. Even the rear seat revealed how far this project had gone. Every 500e was built as a 4-seater, and that decision was not made for glamour or exclusivity. It happened because the differential was so large that there was no room for proper seat suspension in the middle of the rear bench. That one detail tells you everything about the car. Mercedes and Porsche shaped the cabin around mechanical reality, not brochure symmetry. So the rear became 2 individual seats, divided by a central console, giving the cabin a more purposeful, almost executive feel. It looked expensive, but it also looked engineered around consequence. If you consider this, the missing middle seat became a confession. The drivetrain had already taken priority over convention. The important part was honesty. The 500e did not hide the fact that real performance changes everything, even where passengers sit. Today the 500e feels obvious, but in period it arrived before the formula had a settled name. It combined executive comfort, discreet styling, V8 force, hand-finished development, and everyday usability in one coherent machine. That is why it matters so much. It was not merely fast. It established a new kind of seriousness. Production ended at 10,479 cars, low enough to preserve mystique, but high enough to prove the concept worked. Later performance saloons would follow the same path: subtle body, major engine, real brakes, and practical civility. The 500e showed that a 4-door Mercedes could deliver sports car pace without surrendering dignity or routine usefulness. The important part was legacy. This car did not chase a segment. It helped define one. Before the world began calling such machines super sedans, the 500e had already shown exactly what that category should feel like. At number 4, I would place the Mercedes-Benz 190e 2.316. This car mattered because it changed what a small Mercedes could mean. Until then, many people expected compact Mercedes models to be sensible, disciplined, and slightly conservative. The 190e 16-valve arrived with a different mood entirely. It still looked controlled, but there was purpose in the deeper spoilers, the lowered stance, and the sharper body language. You could feel that Mercedes was no longer just protecting tradition here. It was challenging assumptions from inside its own showroom. That is why the baby Benz became such a turning point. It was not merely a smaller saloon with sporting trim. It was Mercedes proving that compact dimensions did not require small ambition, and that seriousness could still wear a harder, younger face. The real shock sat under the bonnet, and you were meant to notice it. Mercedes took its M102 four-cylinder base and gave it a new light alloy, dual overhead cam, 16-valve cylinder head developed with Cosworth, transforming the character of the car completely. Suddenly, this was a Mercedes that wanted revs, not just smooth progress. The 2.3 produced about 185 horsepower, while the later 2.5 pushed the formula further with more torque and stronger flexibility. But the important part was not only the output, it was the change in attitude. The engine felt eager, precise, and unusually alive for the brand at that moment. If you look closely, this is where the car earns its credibility. Mercedes did not fake sportiness here. It engineered a proper high-revving identity and backed it with substance. If the engine gave the 190e its voice, the chassis gave it legitimacy. The W201 platform introduced Mercedes' 5-link rear suspension, and that was a major breakthrough because it gave the compact car a rare combination of stability, composure, and real control. On the 16-valve versions, Mercedes sharpened the package with stiffer settings, larger anti-roll bars, quicker dampers, harder bushings, and rear self-leveling suspension. You would not necessarily see that brilliance from outside, but you could feel it immediately in the way the car settled itself through fast corners and high-speed direction changes. The 190e's 16-valve was not respected just because it had a clever cylinder head. It was respected because the whole car underneath was engineered to deserve that power and carry it properly. Before the car became a legend in memory, it earned authority in public. In 1983, Mercedes took the 190e 2.3 to Nard and set 3 long-distance world records plus 12 international class records, proving reliability under brutal sustained load. Then, in 1984, 20 identical 190e 2.3 lined up at the Nürburgring Race of Champions, where Ayrton Senna beat a field packed with world champions and major names. That moment changed the car's reputation forever. You were no longer looking at an interesting sporting Mercedes. You were looking at a machine that had been tested, displayed, and validated in front of the entire world. The important part was not just publicity, it was legitimacy. Nard proved endurance, Nürburgring proved nerve. Together, they turned the 190e 16-valve from a clever idea into a cult object. Then Mercedes pushed the idea to its sharpest conclusion. The 190e 2.5 Evolution, and especially the Evolution 2, were not ordinary upgrades. They were homologation cars, built so the racing version could fight properly in touring car competition, and you can see that intent in every surface. The aero became more assertive, the stance more purposeful, and the whole car looked like motorsport had begun shaping the road version directly. Even the wheels and brake visibility told you the mood had changed. This was no longer just a quick, compact saloon. It was a road car carrying DTM logic in plain sight. That is why people still speak about the Evo models with such respect. They took everything the baby Benz had promised: engineering discipline, speed, credibility, aggression, and made it unmistakably visible at last. At number 5, I would place the Mercedes-Benz R129 SL. This car mattered because Mercedes refused to build a soft, decorative roadster after the R107. Instead, it engineered an open car that felt unusually rigid, planted, and serious from the first glance. You can feel that intention in the structure alone. Mercedes paired high-strength A-pillars with a double-shell roof frame and a windscreen bonded directly into the body, creating a stronger safety cell than people expected from a convertible. That changed the mood completely. Earlier SLs felt elegant and relaxed. The R129 felt elegant and secure. It still had grace, but beneath the shape sat modern discipline. That is what made it special. Mercedes was not merely replacing the R107 here. It was proving that a roadster could feel almost as reassuring as the company's saloons, without losing its beauty. Then, Mercedes solved the hardest open car problem in one unforgettable gesture. The R129's automatic roll bar was not just a clever feature. It was the car's defining act of confidence. Mercedes had considered a fixed safety hoop during development, but rejected it because it spoiled the roadster silhouette. So the company found a more elegant answer, a concealed roll bar that could deploy in only 0.3 seconds during an impending rollover. That mattered enormously. It meant the car could preserve its clean shape in ordinary driving, then become protective the instant danger appeared. If you look closely, this is classic Mercedes thinking. The solution did not shout, it waited. Compared with older Mercedes convertibles, this was a different level of engineering theatre. Safety had become dynamic, intelligent, and invisible until the last possible moment. That single mechanism changed how modern luxury roadsters could be imagined. The R129 did not stop at the roll bar. Mercedes built safety into the furniture itself, and that is where the car becomes even more impressive. Its integral seats were among the most important parts of the whole design. They carried the seat belts, the belt height adjustment, the belt retractor, the tensioner, and even a linked head restraint function inside the seat structure. That gave the cabin a cleaner look, but the real achievement was deeper. Mercedes turned the seat into part of the protection system. You were not simply sitting in luxury. You were sitting inside the engineering logic of the car. Compared with older Mercedes interiors, especially the R107, this felt like a leap in thinking. The important part was elegance without compromise. The R129 proved that safety hardware did not need to look awkward, exposed, or industrial. It could look calm, expensive, and completely natural. Step inside the R129, and the car explains itself before the engine starts. The cabin feels costly in the old Mercedes way, but more precise, more modern, and more intentional than the R107 it replaced. The seating position is low and controlled. The dashboard is calm. The materials feel substantial without becoming flashy. Then, the details begin speaking. The fully automatic soft top was monitored by 17 limit switches, which tells you how carefully Mercedes treated even one opening movement. The car also introduced a drought stop solution that made open driving more usable and less tiring. On higher versions, especially the 500 SL and 600 SL, leather, wood, and switchgear gave the Roadster a maturity closer to a compact Grand Tourer than a weekend toy. That was the trick. The R129 felt elegant before motion, then justified that feeling once everything began working. The R129 mattered because it carried Mercedes Roadsters into a more technical age. It launched with serious innovation, then kept absorbing more. Adaptive damping system, self-leveling control, later xenon headlamps, and brake assist near the end of production. Its engine range also proved how broad the concept was. You could have refined 6-cylinder smoothness, confident V8 power, or the 600 SL's V12 authority, all inside the same disciplined shape. That gave the car unusual range within Mercedes itself. It was more advanced than the old R107, more elegant than many contemporary saloons, and in V12 form it carried flagship gravity without turning into an S-Class convertible. Production reached 204,940 cars over 12 years, with the 500 SL and SL 500 leading the way at nearly 80,000 units. That is why the R129 still feels important now. It was not fashionable. It was formative. At number 6, I would place Mercedes-Benz C36 AMG. What made it important was not noise, but recognition. The C36 changed that. It was the first production-era handshake between Stuttgart and a Falterbach, and you can feel that legitimacy in the way the car carries itself. It was based on the W126 S-Class, yet it arrived with different seriousness. This was no tuner fantasy attached to a showroom sedan. It was Mercedes admitting that AMG belonged inside the factory story. That mattered beyond one badge. The C36 did not simply launch a model. It opened the door for AMG to become a language within Mercedes itself. Then came the engine, and this is where the C-Class changed character. AMG took the C280's six-cylinder foundation and expanded it to 1,306 cubic centimeters, increasing bore and stroke until the car had a different voice, urgency, and authority. Output rose to 206 kilowatts or 280 horsepower, with 385 Newton-meters of torque. Those numbers were real, but the feeling mattered more. This engine did not behave like a restless sports car unit. It delivered force with composure, then kept delivering. If you opened the bonnet, you saw a compact executive saloon carrying a serious heart. That was the shock. Mercedes had created a C-Class that still looked disciplined, yet now moved with a depth of intent that changed everything around it. The C36 mattered because AMG understood that power alone was never enough. The chassis and brakes had to feel worthy of the engine, and that is what they gave the car. The front brakes came from the R129 SL 600, while the rear brakes came from the W124 E420. That detail tells you the mood of the project. This was not cosmetic performance. It was proper mechanical preparation. The suspension was tuned to sit between sports saloon firmness and Mercedes refinement, while traction control helped the car use its output cleanly. If you drove it quickly, the part was balance. The C36 did not feel raw or unruly. It felt complete. That made it a rehearsal for the AM formula that followed. The C36 became important when it proved AM could sell at scale without losing credibility. That may sound like business talk, but it changed the meaning of the badge. Earlier AM cars felt rare, specialist, almost whispered about. The C36 still carried that seriousness, yet it was built in enough numbers to become Mercedes AM's first high-volume success. By 1997, 5,221 examples had been produced. That number matters because it showed the formula worked outside a niche audience. Buyers wanted a fast Mercedes that did not shout, and AM had found the right size, price, and identity to answer that demand. The C36 did not dilute AM. It taught AM how to grow, and that lesson shaped mainstream performance Mercedes afterward. That is why the C36 still feels larger than its dimensions suggest. Today, the AM badge appears everywhere, but this car came before that flood of recognition. It arrived when AM still needed a decisive production car to define modern Mercedes performance. The C36 gave the brand that foundation. It was fast, but never childish. It was serious, but never joyless. In 1996, it became the first Mercedes AM Formula One safety car, giving the badge public authority everywhere. That symbolic moment fit the car. The C36 was not trying to be outrageous. It was trying to be correct. In doing so, it established the values that later AM models would amplify for the world: speed, restraint, legitimacy, and everyday usability.